Have you wondered what financial advisors actually think about money? This is your sneak peek at the conversations within Financial Design Studio. Michelle Smollenberger, the CEO here, will be your host as you go behind the designs.
All right, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Smollenberger, the CEO and a financial advisor here at Financial Design Studio. And joining me today is Jake Turner, our financial planning associate. Welcome back, Jake.
Hi, Michelle. It's great to be here.
Good, I'm glad
Thanks
you're
for inviting me back again.
Welcome.
Looking forward to our discussion today. What are we talking about?
You want to be sure and listen today because we're going to talk about how to get where you want to go.
One of my favorite topics. We're going to talk about goals and process and how to be successful ultimately.
And what you need to get there. Exactly.
I love it. Well, cool. For the podcast audience out there, I know it's a little later, but today as we're recording, it is that famous holiday in early February, not Valentine's Day. It is Groundhog Day.
Yes.
And it really is a silly holiday, I think, aside from the pomp and circumstance in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. But it does remind me of one of my favorite movies. And don't worry, people, there is a tie-in here to what we're talking about. And so Bill Murray obviously is the main character, and he's a weatherman, and he is reporting from Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania on Groundhog Day. And he's walking through the streets, and he runs into one of his old high school. I'm not going to call him a friend because he doesn't remember him, but his name, acquaintances, his name in the movie is Ned Ryerson. So those of you who've seen the movie are tracking right now. And he tries to avoid him, but Ned says a couple of great things that some of you may have faced in real life to a certain degree, maybe not with as much comedy, but Ned says, first thing out of his mouth, "Hey, do you have life insurance? If you do, you could always use a little more."
Exactly.
And then later he goes on to say, "Have you heard of single premium life insurance? Because I think that might be the ticket for you." So again, we joke, and we've talked about this in podcasts before, giant red flags when it comes to looking at your finances. A, product before goals, and B, putting their product in front of you regardless of if you have a need or not. So anyways, watch Groundhog Day again. It still holds up. I don't know when that movie was made, but great movie.
Okay, but everybody wants to know, did the groundhog see his shadow?
Oh, yes. Breaking news. And not breaking anymore.
If you didn't know this or you haven't seen it on the news.
Apparently, he did see a shadow. So that means 6 more weeks of winter, according to the groundhog in Pennsylvania. So I don't know if that's our best meteorologist, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat where he's only right like 30% of the time. Yeah. So, right?
Wow, less than a coin flip.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Yeah. So interesting. No, thank you for that. I think that helps. You know, sometimes people miss the news and they want to know. Okay, so shifting over to another kind of interesting thing right now. This is February 2nd, so we just finished January, and one of the things that people did in January was they set New Year's resolutions. And by this time, a lot of people have already, there's statistics that a lot of people have already ended or stopped and haven't followed through on those New Year's resolutions. I think you found one where 8% of people actually follow through with them by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
So interesting. So kind of along that theme, I want to ask, have you ever set New Year's resolutions?
Oh, good question. So yes, actually, I kind of do every year. And listeners who've heard me talk before, you know, I speak about how I like to reflect on the year at the end of the year. And, you know, one way to do that is with your net worth statement, which is seeing your progress towards financial goals over the year. You know, you take your assets, your liabilities, subtract your liabilities from your assets. If that number goes up, then you're making progress. If it goes down, you may still be making progress. There could be extenuating circumstances like 2022 where the market decided to drop 20%. But that's neither here nor there. But what I will do at the beginning of the year when it comes to like a New Year's resolution is sit down with my wife and we will decide, all right, here's where we are today, you know, kind of reflect on the year before. But now let's look into the future. Where do we want to be at when we're sitting here 365 days from now? And usually what we will do is it will set kind of a savings rate. Like we want to earmark this percentage of our income for our future selves by way of investing.
Okay. No, that's great. And you did do that this year, right? Good. I know you were very excited too. So
I'm always excited.
Okay. I'm glad. So you would be one of those that followed through on one of the things that he said he was going to do. So that's good. Not exactly a New Year's resolution,
I guess not.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you if you've ever set them because I want to dig a little bit deeper that when you set them, so I'm going to ask you for like a few examples of ones that you've set.
Okay.
Did you have a plan for those? Like, did you have a plan before you set it or before January 1st came? Or did the plan kind of work itself out, throughout the beginning of the year as you were actually completing or following through on that resolution? So why don't you just give us one, let's start with the first New Year's resolution you can think of that you've set.
Outside of the financial.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Whatever.
Well, so this is a goal that I do set. This is recent within the last 2 or 3 years, but I like to try to read one book a month. And yes, listening to a book on Audible counts as reading a book.
Yes,
so you can send all your hate mail to podcast@financialdesignstudio.com.
Okay, so one book a month.
Yeah.
So before January 1st starts, do you already know the 12 books you're going to read?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, so you throughout the year, you're like, okay, in this month I'll decide. Okay, all right, fair. What's another example of a New Year's resolution?
Well, I think a common one, I usually have some sort of health/fitness achievement related goal. I like to run. And so my goal this year is I have a marathon in April. Okay. And so that's not like for the whole year, but that's definitely a goal that I have.
Because you have nothing else going on in your life right now. So let's throw a marathon in there. So you're going to do one, early in the year. So
end of April.
Did you in November, like December, November, October, did you actually build out this plan? Then you might have, because you might have had to start training. However, depending on the amount of training, or January 1st, you're like, I'm going to do this. It's in April and I'm going to develop the plan or choose which plan I'm going to use to train.
Yeah. So my process for that was reflecting on, because I've run a few marathons. So reflecting on training that I've done in the past that's been successful. Okay. I would say it's a little looser than it probably should be, but it's, to me, it's there's definitely like a time goal that I want to achieve. Okay. That's kind of the A goal, but then, I also set kind of like B and C goals as well. So if I don't achieve that first one, there's still a few more. So it's not a total deflation if I don't.
Complete it.
Complete
that
it.
Isn't a good enough goal?
That'll be a goal. Don't get injured. Enjoy yourself. All the important things.
Yes, that's good. Okay. But what I'm trying to get at is, did you need a plan in place to actually follow through, or could you figure it out along the way, or is it something you could kind of just chance?
Yeah, I guess my perspective on that is it depends on the stakes. And what I mean by that is the more impact that this is going to have on, your life, your career, your retirement, the way with which you function in the world. We need money to pay our bills, and to cover our kind of, base level of needs. The next layer on top of that is maybe we want to go on a trip or have some money to spend. The next layer would be, let's think about the future and what is retirement going to bring and what does that look like for us and how do we fund that? These are really, really huge questions that we can dive into a little bit more. Yep. But I would say the stakes are pretty high there. So that's a little more important. Now, the younger you are, the more kind of room for error I would say you have. But as you're kind of getting up there, late 40s, 50s into your 60s, you don't have the time on your side for things to compound over time. So the stakes get higher and higher. But let's look at my book reading goal. We could say that's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? That's a pretty low stakes goal. Yeah. I didn't put as much thought into that, probably for that reason, because the risk of me not accomplishing that is I'm not as smart at the end of the year, maybe. Yeah. Or not as much to lose. So I set a goal and I don't achieve it, although I still want to make sure that I get those 12 books in.
So you could maybe picture books if you need one.
Yeah, I can knock out a couple picture books. Yeah.
I love how I'm just you can't just complete the thing. You can't just do a picture goal. It's okay sometimes to throw in some easy ones.
Good night, moon. Here we come.
Exactly, right? This year I'm going to memorize it. That's great. All right. So I think it's really interesting to think through this. So, because it's not just I set a goal, I achieved it, I did the thing, because it takes something to help you along the way. It takes some pieces to actually get to that point. And so we're going to keep digging deeper until we're going to get you to the, what does it take to get where I want to go? The next thing I kind of think about is why this question even matters. And I think it matters because we typically have a reason for what we do. So if you don't have a reason for what you do, then usually we don't do it. If I'm sitting on the couch and that's enjoyable and I'm able to relax. Unless I have a reason, I'm not getting up.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm just going to stay there. So, kind of like back to these other goals, if you don't have a reason, like here's why I want to do it. So even the book reading with a low stakes loss, let's say, you want to do it because you want to gain maybe some intelligence, or you want to be challenged to think differently, pieces like this. So having a reason for what I do actually gets us to act.
Absolutely. And I think that's, we could take that into the law of inertia, right? Where things are moving along one track, unless there's some sort of external force to move them off that, they're going to continue down that path. And so, sticking with this example, I could watch Netflix, and that is easy and comfortable for me, but I've decided for myself, I'm definitely going to watch Netflix. But in addition to that, I want to make sure that I'm expanding my knowledge base by challenging some thinking and picking up a book that maybe I haven't been exposed to that I should for whatever reason. So that would be me making that decision that this is the reason why I'm going to do this, and then holding myself accountable for that.
And what's interesting, I think, is that if you were to ask someone, this might be a great thing that people could do, is ask someone that that has a New Year's resolution. Maybe they talk about it because they're kind of like, remember, I'm doing this every month. I'm reading a new book, and they want you to ask about the book, or you're in a book club so that helps hold you accountable. Maybe you could ask, I'm curious, why did you choose this as a New Year's resolution? Or why is it that you do this? I do think it's interesting because people's answer is not always what you think. And, you might think that someone's losing weight because they want to get healthy, but it could just be because they want to feel better about themselves. It's so interesting when you actually ask them what the reason is. And so, that could be a challenge, because I think it's kind of insightful, actually, to learn that from people.
I keep tying this into what we do here as financial advisors. Is that's why we ask all those open-ended questions with people to help bring clarity to them, but also to give us a better idea of what's the 3 levels underneath that's motivating them to do this. So to your weight loss point, you can easily assume that, they're doing this because they want to technically see a smaller number on the scale. That could have nothing to do with it.
Exactly.
Right? It could be family history of heart disease, and we just need to work on our lower blood pressure, or it could be a litany of things. But very important to figure out what's that motivation, or what's the internal reason for it.
And I think this level of thinking can sometimes be hard or annoying. And because think about this a little bit, like someone who asks you the question, well, why are you drinking water, Jake?
Oh boy. I drink a lot of water, as people who spend time around me know, because I don't like the way that I feel if I'm dehydrated.
Okay. But why?
Because because I know the feeling of drinking water throughout the day, staying hydrated. I know the way that my brain, I can think more clearly. I have more energy. There's some other internal reasons for that I'll leave out. But hydration is so important for so many reasons.
Your background in science and pharma, this is so great, right? Like, I say it's annoying because when someone's like, but why? But why? But why? And you're just like, I told you because I like it, but there are other reasons below it. And so I just think it's those other reasons kind of below the surface. And when you really ask someone, but why, did you choose to do this? You learn a lot more about them. And you kind of get to this level where you can actually help them understand, or you gain, we're now going to talk about like this clarity. They've gained clarity about why they're doing this thing. And so now this actually helps to move them further in the process of completing the thing, the goal, the resolution, or, whatever's on the list.
Yeah. Sometimes it will put people on the defensive if you're saying why, over and over.
Exactly.
One little tweak there is, to reframe that into like, hey, help me understand your thought process behind this.
Exactly.
Or it kind of invites it kind of opens it up a little bit so that you're giving them an opportunity to inform and teach versus defend themselves.
Exactly. And I think sometimes it's that line of questioning that actually what you're trying to do is to get the person that you're asking to get to the level that is there. You're trying to help them really understand the why and the reason behind what they're choosing to do, or what they're doing, because it's in there and it's deeper than just kind of that surface, that they're offering up. So, all All right. So clarity, we're kind of talking about now getting clear on the reason, the why I'm doing this. And so as we tie this into like how when we're working with clients, yes, we're financial advisors. Yes, we do tax planning. We do investment management. We write financial plans so they can actually be implemented. But the reason behind all of this, is that I would, dare say that everyone needs to know what's happening with their money because everyone needs to do something with it. Whether I'm just paying a bill, whether I'm saving it for a future goal, everybody needs to know. They already have a reason if we just say a base reason. But then when we really start to dig deeper, there's a lot of other reasons why people choose to start working with an advisor faster or, sooner than others do.
Yeah. And you touched on something there that I think is important and maybe not as obvious. People are, they're coming in for a reason. We established that, right? There's some sort of stimulus that usually will have them engage in some way or another with us or with another financial professional. Oftentimes it's help with that clarity piece is I know I have a lot going on. I don't really have the time, energy, or desire to figure this out on my own. So, help me. And that's kind of one of the first steps is, all right, let's get all this on the table. And so we can look at it from a 30,000 foot view before we dial into the, nitty gritty of the action that should be implemented right now. In my earlier kind of funny example, our pal Ned Ryerson, he had no clarity on anything. And he just went in and said, you got life insurance? You could always use a little more.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which isn't helpful
No.
without really understanding
Right.
or having clarity.
Right. And a big piece of clarity is that entire picture. So not only, what's the number on your bank account or in your 401k, why are you saving in the first place? What are you trying to get to? And I may be jumping ahead here, but I think that's why it's so important to, when you're working with a financial professional, is divulge all this information and uncover all of these, internal motivations and how those tie into the dollars and cents and all the different accounts and, policies and documents that you have floating out there.
Exactly. So yeah, I want to pause here because what's interesting is we kind of sometimes we're like, hey, we really get this 30,000 foot view. We need information from you. We want to talk through your reasons, your whys, what it is you're looking forward to, the goals, pieces like that. And honestly, I think that sounds like a really long process for some people. They're like, well, I don't even know what I want or where I want to go. So even in this episode of we're going to help you get where you want to go or help you know what you need to know to get there. People are like, well, I don't even know. And that's what's great is we have a process for how we help people do that. And it's actually pretty quick. And honestly, kind of back to that water example, if you ask someone why, they actually probably do know why. And they actually probably do know what it is that they're trying to achieve. Even if it's like for a starter, like here's the things I know I want to do. And from there, it can just build. And once you start to actually think about your options, then people start to say, well, yeah, that is something else. Yep, that's something else. And now it's actually a pretty quick process when we bring it all together. All right. So the other thing that can happen here is kind of like these pain points. This is where, people come in, people are ready to kind of maybe I need an advisor. Maybe I don't. I'm actually maybe trying to do it on my own. One of the things I would say to be careful of here is like in gaining clarity is you were saying, how, so let's say I do have the time, the interest, or the knowledge. I think the other thing to be careful of that I see people is sometimes you're following someone else's advice. Right. So you're like, well, this works for these people, or these people are saying you should do these things, but how do you know that that's what you need? So I think there's kind of a danger. Do you agree there's a danger in kind of like taking just kind of off the shelf advice and just applying it to your situation?
Yeah. I mean, again, to not blanket on everyone, it's obviously going to be dependent.
Right.
But I would say 95% of the time, that's not going to make sense. And that's kind of a behavioral condition that we can fall into called herd mentality where, we see, and this is not only in finance, but other parts in life too, is we see the people around us doing something, so we decide that that's going to work for us too, because we're like them. Yep. And then this could happen with, hey, I'm at work, I'm contributing to my 401k, and I go around to, the 10 cubicles closest to me, and hey, where do you put your money in your 401k? And then I, take an average of all those people, and that's what I do. And there, boom, look, I have a plan.
Yep. Exactly. And well, but that is like a perfect description of like a pain point. Someone needs to figure out in their 401k how to invest it. Yeah. So do I figure it out on my own? Do I get help? So these are pain points or things they have to figure out because they want the money to be there. They have a reason for investing it. So people can kind of stop here. They can kind of say, okay, yeah, I have these questions. Oh, I got some answers. One thing that I saw recently, someone kind of pointed out, I think it was just kind of like someone, maybe on Twitter or something, someone just mentioned, be careful of following someone's advice, because that person, a person with $2 million in assets, if you're following a person who has $4 million in assets, you're following their advice, and they might be saying, put it all in cash, for example, but you don't have the assets they have. So you can't do the same things. And I think that's where people there's kind of like this danger. So in this questioning process, in this, I have pain points that I need to help figure out and gain clarity. Just be careful who you're getting that from too.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love your example, because, what if in your example before, that person with 4 million is 60 years old and has one more year of working, and they decide they're retiring. And they're going to say, hey, I'm going to put, 5 years worth of expenses in cash. Yeah. Maybe a great thing for them, because they're going to be living off that, and they don't have the time to withstand the volatility. But if you're 45 and you're still planning on working for a while, kudos to you for having such a good start, but your advice probably wouldn't apply to you. So that's where it is so individual. You really, as you're listening or processing this, write down, not only goals, but then tie how those goals are being fed by all these different places that you could have your dollars invested or saved for the future.
Yeah. So it's kind of like these questions that people have. There's kind of these pain points. So what you're searching for is clarity. You're wanting to get answers to your questions. This is one of the biggest things that we do, is we resolve people's questions, answering those questions. This is, kind of how we do that is through the tax planning, the investment management, the financial plans. That is how you gain clarity when you go through that process to know this is what I should be doing. And one sentence to kind of summarize this is clarity is kind of like getting a one-time financial plan. Okay, here's my plan. But now confidence is implementing that advice. So great, I have clarity, I got answers, I have my plan, but is that enough? Do I actually need confidence to actually follow up and now put that plan into action?
Yeah. And that's a big, some big topics here. Even if you can get to that point where, hey, I've realized that I need to delegate some of this. I engaged with a professional, and I've got complete clarity on where I stand right now. Maybe for the first time ever. I know that's such a powerful thing when we see people, and those of us that are listening that have worked with us, maybe you see, we call it a blueprint, but it's basically that thing that shows your entire financial ecosystem in one place on one page. That's pretty powerful to be able to see all that. Yeah. And then that just opens you up to all the different levers you can pull, depending on what your goals are, depending on what your timeline is, and give you the confidence to do that. So I love what you said there. Let's start with clarity, but then what's next?
Yeah. So it was interesting. At the end of the year, last year, we did like a client survey. We were just, we always want to be in touch. We always want to make sure that we are providing value, that we're providing things that, clients need and want. And, that we feel like we're always striving for that, but we want to make sure. And we always want to make sure if there are areas that we can actually be doing better in. And so this is why this topic came up, because we asked just a very simple question, like kind of like finish this sentence. I work with Financial Design Studio because, and just some of the words that people were using when we just took out, like if we were to say one word, it was trust, confidence, experience, knowledgeable. Like it was a lot of things like this. And those are words that you hear from people when they're confident in what they're doing or they're confident in something.
Yeah. And first of all, thank you for those of you who gave us the feedback, because, feedback is a gift. Positive can reinforce what you're doing, but also constructive can help you reflect and maybe change course. But I agree. It was resounding that those were some of the key points there. Is maybe I came to you with a lack of confidence. You helped me along the way. You provided a ton of great education. And now I've got this plan. We're working it. We're pivoting when needed, but man, I'm cruising. I feel really good about where I'm going.
I feel good when I go on vacation because I can do the thing. We're spending, a month in a warmer climate instead of being here. We bought, the second home or whatever that is for everybody. So, okay. So we're going to kind of like solidify this so people actually know what this means. So we're going to put it into some realistic examples that we've seen of clients. I remember a doctor who, good income, had assets saved, and just all of a sudden one day was early 50s and was just like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to run the rat race anymore. I don't want to have to work and save. I have enough. I'm just going to be done. And to be able to do that, you have to know where you're at. You have to know I have enough, right? Like, you have to be able to get there. But then like the confidence to actually stop and do that, like to follow up with that. Like, that's huge.
Yeah. And the word that jumped out at me there was enough. Because that's going to, again, it's so unique to you. And that's where another thing, when you see these blanket statements, I know Susie Orman, a few years ago was like, if you don't have $8 to $10 million, there's no way you can retire. Like, all right, there's plenty of people who retire with a lot less than that.
Exactly.
And a lot more than that, but it's so specific to you. So defining what your enough life looks like, that would be like the base. But then, what does that great life look like as well?
Yeah. All right. Let's do another example.
Okay.
This one was kind of crazy this year. So interest rates, as we've talked about in other podcasts, interest rates have increased. The Fed has been raising them to fight inflation.
Yeah.
And so that brings a lot of great things. Our cash is earning interest. Again, that's exciting. But what's interesting is on the retirement side, if you have a pension, interest rates affect this pension calculation. And so we had one client who this was specifically going to affect in a large way, who was near retirement. In the plan, it was in the next few years. But because of this pension calculation, we were like, whoa, the amount of the change in this calculation that would have happened had this person stayed working was large enough that they should actually retire right now instead of continuing to work for the next 2 or 3 years to get that then. Like, it was actually enough of a difference. So we're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars, that this was enough of a difference that we were like, you need to retire now. Like, imagine getting that advice from your advisor. And sometimes I feel like that's what we do, is we kind of say like the crazy things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and just to be clear, this person it was their decision ultimately. I mean, but
totally.
But they were looking at, maybe let's see if this is possible.
Yeah.
And that's the power of having, being able to run the numbers and then kind of knowing, okay, interest rates are going up. What does this mean for this very specific,
Exactly.
defined benefit pension, at this specific company. So
Yes.
yeah, it's a cool example, Michelle.
Yeah, it's so cool because I what we have seen in the process, honestly, was clarity. So we had to say, wait, is this right? But then what I saw was this process of believing the numbers, okay, gaining clarity, but then this belief that like, this is right. And you know what? I am confident enough to actually do this, because it was like in the process of a month or two where it was like, if you had to shift your mentality from I'm retiring in 4 years, 3 or 4 years, and to 1 or 2 months, like, that's huge. Now, this person could obviously go back to work anywhere and keep working and keep earning if they weren't ready to stop working. But it's that type of an opportunity that you have to be confident in to actually follow through with. You could have clarity and say, yeah, that looks great. But that is one of the things I think sometimes as advisors, like, that is what we really bring is, yes, you can be confident in these numbers to actually follow through, because we're helping to give you the clarity you need, but it's that confidence you get to actually follow through and do it.
Yeah, and I think everybody's going to be a little bit different, right? It's easier for us. I mean, we're certainly emotionally invested in all of this, but we can never be as emotionally invested in your money as you are. And so everybody's going to be a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
Their confidence is going to come. Some people are, you've done it. We talked about that trust piece that kept coming up over and over. So let's go for it. Where other people are like, gosh, I'm really not sure. Maybe they haven't reached that point themselves, but man, once they get that confidence to not only execute on what they're trying to do, but maybe they're even, doing more than they ever thought possible.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
But wait, there's more. There's one more example. This one actually like brings this whole point home, I think, even more. So we've had a client who they're nearing retirement, looking at purchasing a home in a different state. And so this is like, anytime you think of a transition, these are the things we're talking about. It's a lot to think about. This is what I have been doing, and now I know where I want to go, but to transition into that mentality and that thought of, okay, now I can do it, and how do I do it, and to actually walking through it, it takes, a lot more mental energy, but also physical energy. So we're, really like building plans, and they're always changing. And this is what was cool. So with this client, we ran the numbers, we've updated the plan as they really figured out, okay, this is going to be the home, this is going to be the price. If we do this, it's going to be sooner than what they were thinking. And so we're like, okay, can they still do this? There might be some other costs involved, but we ran the numbers. So we've gained clarity. They had all the information, yep, this will work. We've reiterated that. What was so interesting was right before, kind of like the week before, this is what we love about clients, is they want us to tell them the truth. They're like, hey, this is your chance. Like, you're our financial advisors. Like, we want you to tell us if we're crazy. Like, tell us if we should be like, get out. What I loved about this is they were really asking for our confidence. They were asking us to be like, yep, you can do this. We gave them all the clarity. We gave them the answers, but what they really needed was confidence to do this final step to actually put it in action. And so that really brought home for us like what we do. And when you're thinking about this in your own finances, if you don't have clarity, can you be confident in the thing that you're trying to decide? So even if you're doing it on your own, if you're working with another advisor, are you confident? Do you have the clarity? I mean, this is really kind of for everyone really to like dig deep. It's like, what's the reason for what you're doing? And it's going to this other level of saying, wait, I want someone who's going to bring that confidence. They've given me the clarity and I know how we're doing it. And now I can move forward and say, let's do it. Because what happens after that is really excitement that you're actually fulfilling the things that you want to do. It's just like, wow, like we're so thankful. We're so blessed to be able to do this. It's just kind of like this humility that, wow, I'm actually doing the thing. It's almost like this belief of what I maybe thought couldn't really happen.
Yeah, that's a powerful example. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I think the individual piece is big. If you're listening out there and this has piqued your interest in any way, write down a list of questions. It doesn't matter if you're working with us or not. Yep. What are some of the things that maybe you are expecting or you're hearing that you're maybe not so sure about? Write those down, talk it over with, those are important to you. And then if you need to bring it to the attention of your financial advisor and just ask those questions, because there's a lot of basic stuff that we've shared that we may take for granted. Yeah. But we know, and I know personally that not everybody's doing.
Yeah. Well, and I think what we ultimately love, like we share these examples because I think people need to know these are real things that happen out there. I think just a lot of people kind of hear, oh, that's for the super wealthy. That's for the person. No, it's for the person who says, I do know what I want, or I'm not sure and I want to gain clarity, but there is something, like there's something after I stop working, or I want to, somehow I want to transition out. There's something that they need help with. And so I think it just kind of brings it to this practical level of knowing, hey, there's other people dealing with the exact same things, and this is how you work through that.
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully we've convinced you that you really need confidence in your plan, not just clarity, not just answers to your questions. And this has made you kind of think about where you're going.
Yep. Seek the confidence. It's with clarity will come confidence. So that's going to be very different for everybody, but that's a great goal. And I think hopefully a good takeaway for people is how confident do I feel right now in where I'm going and what my plan is.
And I also want to be really careful because when we talk about confidence, that is very different than like, I know the future and I know what's going to happen, right?
Yes.
So there's kind of like this danger. So confidence is I have a plan. That plan is built on assumptions that hopefully are reasonable, isn't built on going to the moon and that happening. Like it's built on, that confidence comes from being built on reasonable assumptions that I can achieve over time to actually get there.
And with an appropriate amount of risk taken into consideration based on your risk, how much risk you want to take. Because that's the big thing. And it's a great point, Michelle. I'm glad you brought that up, is confidence. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't predict the future.
Exactly.
Anybody who claims they can is lying. And so it's based on what we know and the appropriate amount of risk based on your timeline and goals. That's what we're going to do. And that's really, oversimplification, but that's one of the big advantages of having a plan in place is it doesn't matter what's on CNBC, people that they're looking for viewership, but I have this plan. I know it's going to work and we're going to be able to adjust along the way as things come. And that hopefully will lead to some confidence.
This is great. I love this. I feel like it's a deeper discussion. It's kind of like deeper than just the nuts and bolts, which we will always be talking about. So today kind of took this to a different level and what it really takes to get where you want to go. These are the things that I see repeatedly in clients who, make these leaps when, it's enough. They have enough. They've been in that investment and they're like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm going to take my gains and go. And I just see people repeatedly successful when they do these things and don't look back and what am I going to miss? And it's just a very important mindset. So this confidence and clarity are very important. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here, Jake.
Hey, my pleasure. Can I put one little plug in before we leave?
Yes.
So we are going to be having a special podcast episode coming out. I'm not going to say when, but speaking of nuts and bolts, what questions do you, our listeners, have? We want to hear them. It can be super technical. It can be very high level. We don't care. Send us those questions to podcast@financialdesignstudio.com. And maybe we'll even bring them up and answer them live on one of our upcoming podcasts. But
that's the goal.
It's been a thin slice. Thanks for having me on again, Michelle.
Thanks for coming, Jake. All right. Well, you can check out the show notes on our website for additional resources and any links that we've mentioned. If you feel like you don't have confidence in your finances, that's what we do. We specialize in tax-efficient financial planning and investment management. So why wait? Go ahead, reach out to schedule a meeting today. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Your host was Michelle Smollenberger, a certified financial planner and the CEO at FDS. Guests featured are from Financial Design Studio, a team of experienced fiduciary, fee-only advisors based here in Chicago. Anna Lewis is the executive producer of the Behind the Designs podcast. And as always, for more information about Financial Design Studio and who we are, check out our website, financialdesignstudio.com. Final note, all content discussed on this podcast should not be taken as financial advice. Financial Design Studio accepts no responsibility for your individual choices. We'll see you in the next episode.